Imagine if I told you there's a thinking method that doesn't aim to improve your goals by 10%, but by 1000%. What I'm sharing today isn't theory. It's the real 10x thinking method used inside Google that transformed a Stanford research project into a $2 trillion tech empire. As a former Google engineer, I witnessed firsthand how this thinking system revolutionized the entire company's decision-making process. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll completely break down this method so you too can use 10x thinking to redefine the boundaries of your career and business. But before we dive in, let me ask you something. Are you tired of incremental improvements that barely move the needle? Are you ready to think beyond the limitations that have been holding you back? Because what you're about to learn will challenge everything you thought you knew about setting and achieving goals. Here's what we'll cover today. First, why 99% of people are trapped in incremental thinking patterns that keep them stuck. Then I'll reveal how Google used 10x thinking to create disruptive products like Gmail, Android, and YouTube. You'll get the specific 10x thinking framework with actionable steps you can implement immediately. And finally, I'll show you how to overcome the psychological barriers that prevent most people from thinking exponentially. If you want to break through your current thinking limitations, this video will be your turning point. Get your pen and paper ready, because you'll want to capture every practical method I share. Let's start with what 10x thinking really means. Most people think it's simply about making your goals 10 times bigger. That's completely wrong. 10x thinking is a fundamental shift in how you approach problems entirely. When Larry Page and Sergey Brin started Google, they didn't ask how can we make search 10% better. They asked, what if we could organize all the world's information? That's the difference between incremental thinking and exponential thinking. Here's a real example from inside Google. When Gmail was being developed, most email providers offered 2 to 4 megabytes of storage. The incremental approach would have been to offer 6 or 8 megabytes. Instead, Gmail launched with 1 gigabyte, over 250 times more storage than competitors. This wasn't just about having more space. It completely changed how people thought about email management. Suddenly, you didn't need to delete emails anymore. You could search through years of correspondence instantly. That's 10x thinking in action. The fundamental difference between incremental and exponential thinking lies in resource allocation. Incremental thinking asks, how can we do this better with what we have? Exponential thinking asks, what would this look like if we started from scratch with unlimited possibilities? When you think incrementally, you're constrained by existing resources, processes, and assumptions. When you think exponentially, you question everything and imagine entirely new approaches. This is why most people stay trapped in 10% improvements. Your brain is wired to seek safety and predictability. It wants to build on what already exists, because that feels safer. But 10x thinking requires you to embrace uncertainty and reimagine possibilities. It's uncomfortable, which is exactly why it works. When everyone else is making small improvements, you're creating breakthrough innovations. Now let me share how Google built this 10x culture from the beginning. Larry Page had what he called moonshot thinking. The idea that you should pursue projects that could improve something by 10 times, not 10%. This wasn't just motivational speaking, it became the foundation of Google's entire innovation strategy. Page believed that if you're going to put in the effort to solve a problem, you might as well solve it completely, rather than make minor improvements. Let me walk you through 3 classic 10x cases that show this principle in action. First, Gmail.in 2004 web-based email was terrible. Yahoo Mail and Hotmail offered tiny storage limits and slow performance. Google didn't just make email slightly better. They reimagined what email could be: 1 gigabyte of storage, lightning-fast search, conversation threading, and powerful spam filtering. They didn't compete in the existing email market. They created an entirely new category of email experience. Second, Android. When Google entered the mobile market, they didn't try to build a slightly better BlackBerry or Palm device. They made Android completely free and open source. This seemed crazy to industry experts. How do you make money giving away your operating system? But Google understood that controlling the mobile platform was worth more than selling software licenses. Today, Android powers over 70% of smartphones worldwide. That's 10x thinking about business models. Third, YouTube. When Google acquired YouTube, many people questioned the decision. How do you monetize user-generated content? Traditional media companies controlled content creation and distribution. YouTube flipped this model completely. Instead of paying for content, they let users create it. Instead of limiting distribution, they made it global and instant. This seemed impossible to monetize, but it became one of Google's most valuable properties. But 10x thinking isn't always successful. Google Glass is a perfect example of 10x ambition meeting real-world constraints. The vision was revolutionary, a computer interface integrated into your daily vision. The technology was impressive, but the social acceptance, privacy, concerns, and practical limitations weren't adequately addressed. This teaches us that 10x thinking must be balanced with understanding human behavior and market readiness. Now, let's dive into the practical framework you can use. The 10x thinking system has 4 core components. First is problem redefinition. Instead of asking, how can we improve this by 10%? Ask, if we were starting this from scratch today, what would it look like? This single question shift can unlock completely different approaches. Here's a practical exercise. Think about your current, biggest professional challenge. Write it down. Now, instead of thinking about incremental improvements, ask yourself, if I had to achieve the same outcome but couldn't use any of my current methods or resources, what would I do? This forces your brain out of incremental thinking patterns and into exponential possibilities. The second component is resource reallocation. 10x thinking requires you to completely rethink how you use your time, money, and energy. At Google, they allocate 20% of engineers' time to personal projects. This isn't just about innovation, it's about training minds to think beyond daily operational tasks. When you're constantly focused on incremental improvements to existing systems, you never develop the mental space for breakthrough thinking. For your own application, try this. Take 20% of your work time this week and dedicate it to completely reimagining one aspect of what you do. Don't improve it, reimagine it. What would this look like if you designed it from the ground up today? The third component is technology leverage. 10x results usually require 10x efficiency improvements, and technology is the primary way to achieve this. Google doesn't just use technology to make things slightly faster or cheaper. They use it to make things that were previously impossible become routine. Search through billions of web pages in milliseconds, translate between languages instantly. Navigate anywhere in the world with real-time traffic data. Ask yourself, what technology could you leverage to achieve results that seem impossible with your current methods? This might be artificial intelligence, automation, platforms, or tools you haven't considered. The key is thinking about technology as an enabler of impossible outcomes, not just efficiency improvements. The fourth component is business model disruption. This is often the most powerful but overlooked aspect of 10x thinking. Instead of improving how you deliver value, completely reimagine what value means. Google didn't make better Yellow Pages, they made information instantly searchable. Netflix didn't make better video, rental stores, they made entertainment instantly accessible. For your situation, ask, what if you didn't charge for your primary service? What if you gave away what you currently sell? and monetize something completely different? What if you turned your customers into your distribution channel? These questions can reveal entirely new approaches to creating and capturing value. Now, let's address the psychological barriers that prevent most people from thinking exponentially. The first major obstacle is fear of failure. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, and 10x goals feel inherently risky. When you set a goal to improve something by 10%, failure means you might achieve 8% improvement. When you set a 10x goal, failure might mean achieving only 2x or 3x improvement, which is still better than the 10% goal, but feels like failure because you missed your exponential target. Google addressed this by creating a culture of safe failure. They celebrate intelligent failures that generate valuable learning. The key insight is that attempting 10x improvements and achieving 3x results is better than attempting 10% improvements and achieving 8% results. But your brain doesn't naturally think this way. The second barrier is scarcity thinking. Most people operate from the assumption that resources, time, money, attention, opportunities are fundamentally limited. This creates a mental framework where you're constantly optimizing within constraints rather than questioning the constraints themselves. 10x thinking requires abundance thinking, the belief that creative solutions can expand available resources rather than just optimize their allocation. To develop abundance thinking, regularly ask yourself, what would I do if I had unlimited resources? Then work backwards to find creative ways to access or create those resources. Often, the limitations you accept as fixed are actually assumptions that can be challenged. The third barrier is social pressure and expectations. When you announce 10x goals, people will question your judgment, call you unrealistic, or suggest you're setting yourself up for disappointment. This social pressure can be intense, especially from people who care about you and want to protect you from failure. Building a support network of people who understand exponential thinking is crucial. Seek out communities, mentors, or peers who celebrate ambitious goals rather than discouraging them. Sometimes, this means spending less time with people who consistently discourage big thinking, even if they mean well. Let me share a personal example. When I left Google to start my own company, most people told me I was crazy to leave such a secure, prestigious position. The safe choice would have been to stay and pursue incremental career advancement. Instead, I applied 10x thinking to my career. I asked, what would my professional impact look like if I wasn't constrained by corporate structures? This led me to start a company that has now helped thousands of people develop exponential thinking skills. The 10x approach to my career created opportunities that would have been impossible within traditional corporate advancement. Now, let's talk about practical applications for personal development. 10x thinking transforms how you approach skill acquisition. Instead of asking, how can I get 10% better at this skill? Ask, what would mastery look like and what's the fastest path to get there? This might mean learning from world-class experts instead of local teachers, using immersive methods instead of casual practice, or focusing on high-leverage skills that compound exponentially. For professional networking, 10x thinking means building relationships with people who are where you want to be in 10 years, not just people at your current level. It means providing value at a scale that gets you noticed by industry leaders. Instead of attending local networking events, maybe you create content that attracts your ideal professional network to you. For small businesses, 10x thinking revolutionizes customer acquisition. Instead of asking, how can we get 10% more customers? Ask, what would it look like if our customers became our primary marketing channel? This might lead to referral systems, community building, or product experiences so remarkable that customers can't help but share them. For product development, 10x thinking means solving customer problems so completely that competitors become irrelevant. Instead of adding features, you might redesign the entire user experience. Instead of improving your product, you might eliminate the need for that product category entirely by solving the underlying problem differently. For large corporations, implementing 10x thinking requires cultural change. You need to create safe spaces for exponential experimentation. This might mean setting aside budgets for impossible projects, celebrating intelligent failures, and promoting people who think exponentially even when their projects don't succeed. For startups, 10x thinking should be built into your business model from the beginning. Ask, how can we create 10 times more value for customers while using 10 times fewer resources? This forces you to find leverage points that established competitors can't easily replicate. Let me give you a practical tool. Create what I call a 10x project worksheet. For any goal or project, answer these questions. What would 10x success look like? What assumptions am I making that might be wrong? What would I do if I had unlimited resources? What technology could change the game completely? What would this look like if I started from scratch? How could I make this so valuable that people would pay me to let them help? Now, let's address common mistakes people make when applying 10x thinking. The first mistake is simply multiplying your current goal by 10 without changing your approach. If your current goal is to make $1,000 per month, and you change it to $10,000 per month, but keep the same strategy, that's not 10x thinking. That's just bigger incremental thinking. True 10x thinking requires fundamentally different approaches. To make 10 times more money, you might need to change what you sell, how you sell it, who you sell to, or how you think about value creation entirely. The second mistake is ignoring execution realities. 10x thinking isn't about fantasy, it's about breakthrough innovation that's actually achievable. Your exponential goals need to be paired with practical execution strategies. This means breaking down impossible-seeming goals into manageable experiments and learning cycles. The third mistake is pursuing perfection instead of rapid iteration. 10x thinking works best when combined with fast experimentation and continuous learning. Instead of spending years developing the perfect 10x solution, develop minimum viable versions that you can test and improve quickly. Remember, 10x thinking requires long-term commitment. Exponential results rarely happen overnight. They compound over time through consistent application of exponential thinking principles. You need to develop patience with the process while maintaining urgency in execution. Building a team culture that supports 10x thinking is crucial. This means hiring people who are comfortable with ambiguity, celebrating creative problem-solving over following procedures, and measuring long-term impact over short-term efficiency. Finally, balance exponential ambition with practical wisdom. Not every decision needs to be a 10x decision. Use exponential thinking for your most important goals and challenges while maintaining operational excellence in your day-to-day activities. Let me summarize the key points. 10x thinking is a fundamental shift in how you approach problems. It's about reimagining possibilities rather than optimizing existing approaches. The core framework includes problem redefinition, resource reallocation, technology leverage, and business model disruption. Success requires overcoming psychological barriers like fear of failure, scarcity thinking, and social pressure. The most important takeaway is this: start applying 10x thinking to one specific project or goal in your life. Don't try to revolutionize everything at once. Pick something meaningful but manageable and practice thinking exponentially about that one area. As you develop comfort with exponential thinking, you can expand its application. Here's what I want you to think about. What industry or area of your life most needs a 10x breakthrough? What would it look like if you had unlimited resources to redesign your current work completely? Take a moment to seriously consider these questions. I also want to challenge you. Over the next 7 days, choose one project and apply the 10x thinking framework we discussed. Share your progress in the comments. I'll be reading and responding to complex scenarios personally. If this video changed how you think about goal setting and problem solving, subscribe to the channel. I share Silicon Valley thinking methods like this every week. Hit the like button to let me know which area you're planning to apply 10x thinking to. Next week, I'll be sharing Amazon's working backwards method, another game-changing thinking model that revolutionizes how you approach innovation. And check the description for downloadable 10x thinking worksheets and tools. Remember, the biggest risk isn't failing at exponential goals, it's succeeding at incremental ones that don't matter. Think 10x and change your game completely.